As parents, few things are more frustrating than not being able to communicate with your child. And it's equally as frustrating for the child not to be able to communicate with their parents, peers, teachers, or in the case of apraxia of speech and speech delays, anyone at all. If your child has been diagnosed with apraxia of speech or some other form of speech delays, or has not received a formal diagnosis yet, but you know they are struggling to communicate clearly and effectively, this video is for you. It's especially for you if you've been doing speech therapy and other forms of care for some time and are not seeing many results, feel stuck, or are even regressing. In this video, we'll teach you the three main components or pieces and parts of speech and how they work together, how they get jammed up, and what you can do to help these three major components or functions that make up speech begin to work better in order to get your child's speech and communication back on track. So please share this with other mamas or parents who you know need to hear this message. So we are going to go through the three parts of speech. The first important component of speech is perception or input. Before there can be integration and output later on, the sensory nervous system in the brain must be able to receive auditory information from its environment. From there, the brain and nervous system then process or integrate that information in order to make sense of it. Once the brain has received that information or input and properly processed and integrated it, it then must be able to create output and action to fully formulate and express sounds into words. In our practice, the most commonly jammed up and interfered with functions are number 2 and number 3, or more accurately even the neurological connection and communication between the two functions. If the signals between speech processing and speech formation are crossed up and interfered with, the child will understand what's being said to them and what's going on around them, but not able to communicate clearly and articulate in response. Or in the case of apraxia of speech, not be able to at all. So parents, that may lead you to ask the question, what could be causing the jam up of signals and communication between steps number 2 and number 3 in communication for my child? And how do we get it fixed and cleaned up? That's where neurologically focused pediatric chiropractic and something called subluxation come into play. Simply put, subluxation is neurological interference and interrupted communication between the sensory nervous system and the muscles that make speech happen. Apraxia of speech and speech delays are perhaps the most obvious and easy to understand real-life examples of subluxation and nerve interference in kiddos, because they can do step 1, the perception, and step number 2, interpretation and integration, but then get jammed up and cannot properly perform step 3, which is speech formation. Our job at Pediatric Chiropractic is then to find out if there's subluxation, where it's at, and where in the neurospinal system and how severe it is. And we can do that with our neurologic insight scans. The most common trigger of subluxation that would interfere with speech and function of formation is birth intervention and trauma. Things like forceps, vacuum extraction, C-sections, which then lead to subluxation of the upper and mid neck or cervical spine and brainstem region, where all three of the components of speech are controlled and coordinated. So what do you do next? We're going to attach an article. We're going to link that. So read that article. And then if you want, schedule a consultation. If you're ready to get results, schedule a new patient exam. Let's get an insight scan on your kiddo and find out where that subluxation is, how much is there, and if it's causing interference in your kiddo's speech. Go ahead and call us or send us a message.